So I'm on my way now to pick up Mark Wayne Adams, who is a renowned illustrator, author, and publisher of children's books. And so it's going to be really nice meeting up with him today. We're going to head over to the library, check out some books, see what inspires him, what he's been reading. But then we're also going to get to look in on his illustration process as well. Because at the Bob Kirby branch is where he did the great mural in the children's section there. So we're going to take a look at that and hear about his creative process. And then we're also going to get to see him do some illustration as well. So stay tuned, we're going to check that out. So Mark, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us about your latest project you're out on book tour for.
Well, I'm actually working on 5 projects at once.
5?
5 projects, but I'm actually out on tour for the Outback series. Well, it's not Outback, it's Family Tree Novels series. And Outback is the first book, and Down Under is the second book that's just released.
Oh, that's awesome.
It'll release in January.
Yeah, so you write for a lot of audiences, so what age range is this book geared towards?
This is geared toward young adults, so all of my readers are growing up, and once they reach 5th grade, they leave me, and they move on to a young adult audience, and I don't hear from them until they have kids again. So I started to write in the next genre up for my readers.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I know you're an illustrator and an author and a publisher, so which one of those comes first in your professional life?
Well, I've illustrated 54 picture books, so illustration comes first because I've only written 3.
Yeah.
And I published for 5 different authors and 16 different titles, and they've won over 50 different picture book awards.
Oh, that is amazing. Yeah. So a lot of people watching this at home might be wondering about how one becomes an illustrator, what your journey was like to do that. So did you go to art school, or were you self-taught, or how'd that come about?
It was kind of self-taught in the fact that my mom was a librarian, and it all started when I first got on a bookmobile, believe it or not. The bookmobile driver said, what are your favorite things? And so I like horses and I like to draw. So she gives me a book on how to draw horses.
There you go.
And bam, I'm like, when are you coming back? Because I lived in Western Kentucky, and my mom didn't have a driver's license until I was ready to go to school. So we would rely on the bookmobile or someone else to take us into town. And no, I'm not that old. There were cars around. But
well, I don't know, you want to be taking the wagon in.
Yeah. But, it started with the library because to become an illustrator costs nothing. I went to the drawing section. I started with the first book. I learned everything in the first book, moved on to the second book, the third book. So, most parents think that they have to put their kids into drawing lessons. If your kid is inspired to draw, they're going to draw whether you take them to class or not.
Yeah.
So the library books were my first outlet. And in high school, no one else I knew drew like I did. And so I thought I was like as good as I could ever get. And I went to college, and first day was an attitude adjustment for sure.
You were quickly dissuaded of that notion.
Yeah, but I always had this drive to learn how other people did it. So it was actually a benefit because my first day of class was, how did you do that? How did you do that?
Yeah.
How did you do that? So I learned all the really good things, and I think that's what it is. You look for the best, you try to learn and make yourself as good as your mentor, and that's really what it's about. If you want to be an illustrator, it costs nothing. It just takes time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time.
So you have a really unusual working life in that you are on the road all the time. So as we got to see a little bit earlier, do you just sort of set up shop places whenever you get a chance and get your work in, or how does that work with that sort of schedule you have?
Exactly. Most illustrators, they work from a studio. I've always been on the move. When I started my illustration business, my kids were 2 and 4. They were always in my office, so I would have to sit up at the kitchen table while they did homework. I would draw, and paint, and they would draw and paint and work on their homework. So they never really thought I was working. And even my family members, whenever I show up, I'll sit on my mom's back patio, and I'll set up shop, start watercoloring. And my family will come by and they're like, oh, they're talking to me. And they're like, why are you so frustrated? And I'm like, I'm trying to work.
The dad's at work right now.
I'm working. But I like to work in public. Well, this is one that most people will probably think, why is Mark Adams reading this? But when I was a kid, Stephen King was one of my favorite authors. Now, the first book that I read that I really enjoyed was Silver Bullet. And my mom gave it to me. She's the librarian, and she gave it to me and said, "Here, try this one. Most kids your age like this book." So I read Silver Bullet. And growing up in Western Kentucky, we have coyotes and wild dogs, and I always read books with my window open on my bed. So as I was reading the book, I could hear coyotes yelling in the background, and it's about werewolves, Silver Bullet. So I was scared to death. And also what scared me was also the author's photograph always scared me. So I got hooked with Stephen King, but I also like this book, Misery, because inside the book there's a phrase that says, "I'm your biggest fan." And I hear that so often on book tours now that people will come up and say, "I'm your biggest fan." And I'm like, "Oh, please, please, please don't say that." But it's all because of Stephen King and his writing. Kentucky author. This is Red Mule, and I grew up on a farm. So when I was in probably about 4th or 5th grade, my mom turned me on to Jesse Stewart's books. And Red Mule was one of those books I gravitated toward because my granddad had a mule. And he is very much like Red Mule, the main character of the story. And I really related to it because Red Mule was giving guidance to this little boy, the same way my granddad gave me guidance. So this is one of my favorite books to read. I'm actually reading it right now at my parents' house. When I come to Kentucky, I always stop there. And I ask Mom, I'm like, "Do you have a copy of Red Mule?" And she says, "Oh, I have all of Jesse Stewart's books." One of my first books that I ever read was Billy and Blaze. And it's by C.W. Anderson. And I think subliminally C.W. Anderson had a really big effect on me because my son's initials are C.W. So his name's Carter Wade. But inside this book, it's a relationship of a boy with a horse. I grew up on a farm, and my parents would never let me have a horse because it ate too much. They're afraid I would get kicked, fall off, because they were dangerous. But inside this book, I wanted to be this kid. I wanted this relationship. And so that's why this is probably one of my favorite books to read. Also, I love the illustrations. If anyone knows me, they know I'm always carrying around a black pen and drawing in a white book. And most of my drawings look this way until I actually found colored pens. So now I'm drawing color, but this is one of my favorite books here. And the copy that's in my mom's library, it's the Dawson Springs Branch Library. It's a sister branch to the Warren County Public Library. If you go there, you will find all these books, and this book especially, there are trace lines around all of the drawings. So as a kid, I would sit down and I would press down and I would trace all of the drawings. And that's how I would learn to draw horses. When I was probably 5 to 7 years old, I would sit and trace from other people's drawings. Those are some of my favorite finds in the Warren County Public Library. And I'm pretty sure you'll find many more books just like that. And if you give it time, I'm pretty sure that something amazing is going to happen because of a book you've read. I actually created this illustration for Warren County Public Library, and it's really fun that I was asked to do this because I love to draw cars. And when Lisa Rice asked me to illustrate this picture, she wanted me to come and paint this on the wall. And I gave Lisa a price, and she's like, "That's absurd." I'm like, "Yeah, you're asking me to come, and it will take me weeks to come here and paint something on the wall as beautiful as this." So what I did was I actually illustrated each part of the illustration individually. And the reason I did that was so if I wanted to add something, I could add it, but also I did that so if we wanted to make it bigger, for example, if she decided she wanted to extend it around the walls, we could actually make this picture even bigger. So what I did was Lisa provided me some inspiration from Bowling Green, but I have plenty of inspiration from coming to Soki Book Festival for the past 7 years. And what I did was I tried to pull some things that were hidden about myself, because I do that with most of my artwork. So if you were to look at the mural, one of the things that I did was actually the cardinal up here. It was a symbol for the Louisville Cardinals. And all you Wildcat fans, there's a bluebird in here somewhere. Oh, he's right there. So, and also, the first car I ever wanted was a Corvette. And it was a convertible, and it was that one. And my dad said, no way. He had something about horses and horsepower. I don't know what it was. But also I've hidden my dog. This is my dog. His name is Russell, and he appears in many of my books. He's in King for a Day. He's the main character in that book. Also, I tried to hide things. For example, this is Scribbledy Sophie in one of my books. So I use this character, and it's similar to her book. And we also have Outback. The cheerleader on the far end is reading Outback novel. So I tried to put books that were something about me, but also the entire picture is really about Bowling Green and the readers.